All right, today we're going to be talking about Perpetual Chess Improvement by Ben Johnson. This is a collection of chapters about chess improvement for all levels. And I think the best intro to this book is to talk a little bit about the history of the podcast. So the podcast is about 10 years old. And what's really interesting to me is it begins with, let's call it, a view from the top of the chess world. So GMs, super GMs, notable authors, people talking about history, but when they're talking about history, they're talking about the history of the top players of the game. And then slowly throughout that time, we start getting more of an interest in the regular Joe, the improvement of the regular Joe. So beginning maybe with some trainers, and then we start getting regular Joe and Jill, himself and herself, onto the show talking about their journeys. And this is fascinating to me. One is obviously social media has allowed the players of the world who previously didn't have a voice to catalog their chess journeys, and then it's suddenly very interesting for a lot of people out there. And I think to Ben's own surprise, that's when the podcast really takes off. And from my own experience, I want to just relate that as someone who's not good at fitness but is interested in fitness, a very similar thing is going on. And what I can really relate to is that when I think of my own fitness journey, for example, I'm not interested in the top people. No, it does nothing for me. I have zero interest in what the top people are doing. But if I can hear the story of somebody who's trying to get fit, who's maybe my age, not athletically gifted, but they've got some quest and they're trying, yes, and I want to hear not only what they feel is going right, but I want to hear the painful moments as well. I want to hear about the whole journey. And that's the person I'm actually interested in learning from in terms of how to get better. Because the people at the top have an entirely different journey, also entirely different motivations for why they're doing what they're doing, right? And I think that's a really important aspect that cuts across not just chess, but these other elements of life. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Now, I think there's two ways to read this book. You can read it straight through, as I did, very easy read to go all the way through, or you can read it as a reference book to think about specific questions of chess improvement, right? And so I'm going to describe the book a little bit, and I really like the way it's built up. So we begin with the four things everybody on the show has agreed upon, or mostly everybody, right? And Ben calls these the four pillars of chess improvement. Now, first of all, if you haven't listened to the show, we're talking hundreds of episodes. There's probably someone out there who's listened to all of them, right? But I've listened to a lot, but I haven't even come close to listening to all of them. And so this is the distilled wisdom of those, I think it's at least 500 plus, something like that. So what are the four? We got playing longer games, right? Should be over the board, but there's substitutes. We've got analyzing those games. We've got calculation, and we've got chess, what we call chess culture, having a community, right? Those are the things that there's agreement on. And then the next chapters are things like, maybe there's some disagreements. Should you do endgames? Should you do openings? That kind of question, right? So each of those is a very interesting question about how to improve. Now, to use the fitness metaphor again, one thing that's interesting to me is, as a chess player and coach, I find very little, I don't have a lot of questions about what it takes to improve. I feel like I know pretty clearly. But as a regular fitness person, and this is for what the books really aim for, like let's say how much protein. Oh my God, if you Google that, you'll just end up going down a rabbit hole you never want to come out of, right? Or what kind of training should I be doing? Again, there's a very similar thing happening where there's a bunch of fitness influencers, much like the chess influencers, and they're all saying different things, and they're all platforming themselves off of the different things they are saying. So regular Joe like me is just like, oh my God. And that leads me then again to be like, I don't even want to hear what those people at the top are saying. I don't even want those people. I want to hear what regular Joe in kind of sort of my situation, I want to know about that person and their journey. And that's a lot of what Ben's podcast is, right? Okay. And now, one of the things that I would add to the pillars is that you need a structure to follow, and that's something we've done at the dojo, because one of the things I recognize in myself in that fitness journey is I'm kind of spinning my wheels. I'm going crazy thinking about, oh my gosh, is it this thing or is it that thing? And then the energy I'm expending, also different websites or little apps that you can download. Oh no, the energy expenditure when you could just be doing something constructive, right? So I think that's very important, and very happy that the dojo is doing that. One of the great things about this book is, at the dojo, we're constantly fine-tuning, the program. Basically every year we introduce updates to the program, a lot of which are based on Ben's recommendations, right? So I think that's very important, and I wanted to bring that up because it's part of the book, is that I can feel in these chapters that people are spinning around and around and around, wondering what it takes to become better at chess. Something I very much value Ben and his knowledge is books and let's say his edification around books. He's turned the dojo and me onto several books, most recently Think Like a Super GM, great book. Books that I wouldn't have been turned on to, not only for, say, the GMs of the world, but also the lower rated players in the program. Really well written things like Chess Tactics from Scratch. He's turned us on to all kinds of books, and there's a great list in this book of books and websites, tools that you can use. I thought that was especially well done. Now, the thing I'm going to end this review by saying is I could talk more about the disagreements. I think that's the more spicy of the chapters. But what I'm going to try to convince the other senseis of the dojo is that we take, each chapter by chapter, read Ben's take, and then have a fight amongst ourselves. And that's a very important fight for us to have, because that will inform then how we, fine-tune the dojo structure itself. And again, I do think structure is very important, and I see that in myself in this fitness journey. Oh God, would it be nice if someone just came down and said, "Mouse, this is what you need to do." All right, there it is, Perpetual Chess Improvement. I recommend it, by Ben Johnson.